There's something quietly miraculous that begins to unfold the moment you open your mouth and release your voice. Not in speech, not in casual conversation, but in the sacred act of intentional sound. For just over half a minute, if you allow your voice to emerge in pure tone without judgment or expectation, something within starts to stir. This isn't a poetic notion or a metaphor wrapped in mysticism. It's a physical, emotional, and energetic shift that initiates the body's most ancient form of restoration. A current passes through you, almost imperceptible at first, yet powerful enough to alter the very rhythm of your internal landscape. And it's not some modern revelation born of experimental technology. Long before any pill was ever swallowed, long before instruments were sterilized in hospitals, this was known. It was whispered through stone chambers, echoed in chants that seemed to ripple across unseen dimensions. The ancients didn't stumble upon it. They remembered it. Somewhere in the sands of what we now call Egypt, there lived a priesthood that didn't see sound as amusement or artistry. To them, sound was intelligence in motion. It was structure disguised as tone. And among them stood a figure whose name has outlasted many empires, Thoth. He wasn't merely a scribe or a deity captured in myth. He was a keeper of laws deeper than those carved in stone. Laws of vibration, of harmonics, of resonance. Within temple walls not lit by sun but by flame and vibration, he taught that the voice could open unseen gates. That tone, when focused with pure intention, became the scaffolding for energetic healing. These weren't hymns for worship. These were codes, each syllable a sequence, each breath a calibration. Imagine the silence before the first sound. That was the temple, not filled with song, but with stillness that waited. And into that stillness, a single note would descend, not memorized lyrics, not melodies written on parchment, but raw, vibratory force, channeled through the human body like lightning through a rod. Those who had trained for decades would sit in deliberate darkness, listening not with their ears but with their bones. They didn't need music because they were the instrument. Every cell in their bodies was tuned to respond. When the right frequency was voiced, it didn't simply echo. It moved. Through tissue, through blood, through memory. It restructured. It awakened. This wasn't a guessing game. Each part of the body responded to sound with remarkable specificity. The liver, the lungs, the brainstem, the bones, each had its own harmonic key. When an imbalance appeared, the correction wasn't chemical, it was acoustic. A tone was chanted not loudly but precisely, held not for beauty but for alignment. That sound, directed with mastery, re-established rhythm in an organ that had fallen out of sync with the whole. And that rhythm was everything, because in the view of the ancients, disease was not an invasion but a disharmony. It wasn't a foreign entity attacking the body. It was a note gone sharp or flat in an otherwise harmonious composition. Thoth didn't keep these revelations to himself. He inscribed them into energetic records, not open to the casual seeker. When he arrived in Egypt, from a place the world has mostly forgotten, Atlantis, he brought with him a science not of formulas, but of feeling. He shared with the initiated that the flesh is but a shell, and that the truest transformation takes place on layers far subtler, not visible to eyes, but unmistakably felt by the soul. Beneath the very crust of the earth, in what he described as an interdimensional corridor, he introduced sacred tones that acted not as music, but as portals. These pure sounds weren't just pleasant, they were blueprints, vocal expressions shaped by sacred geometry, not language. When chanted correctly, they guided the listener into a state where time fractured and memory surfaced. Memories that didn't belong to this lifetime alone. Memories locked behind trauma, blocked by forgetfulness and hidden behind emotional debris began to melt, revealing layers of self not accessible through ordinary experience. But such sounds weren't for everyone. They required purity, presence, and a body prepared to receive them. In the hands, or rather the mouths, of the uninitiated, they could destabilize rather than restore. The responsibility was immense, so the codes were protected, passed down not through scrolls, but through breath and proximity. They were legacy, not literature. Those who chanted without understanding scattered their essence, while those who sang with full presence stoked a sacred fire buried deep within the human core. That fire, it pulses even now, not metaphorically, but biologically. It waits for a signal, a resonance, a vibration strong enough to bypass the noise of daily life and remind the system how to hum its original tune. This is not about absorbing something new. Healing, in this ancient view, is not an addition but a release. The body is not missing pieces. It's simply cluttered with interference. Sound does not build, it reveals. It clears the static so your natural flow can return. You may not remember these sounds with your mind, but your spirit does. Your cells do. From the first breath you took in this life, perhaps even before, these frequencies were etched into your energetic DNA. And the Egyptians weren't the only ones to preserve this understanding. While chants vibrated through Egyptian sanctuaries, across the oceans, sages in far-off lands were discovering the same thing, not copying each other, but tuning into the same universal source. In India, the ancient seers known as rishis recorded the Vedas, the oldest spiritual texts still in existence. In them, they revealed a truth that echoes Thoth's. The world itself was not made with tools. It was sung into existence. Creation, in their telling, began with a tone, not after matter formed, but before it ever took shape. This sound, primordial, continuous, eternal, initiated light, then structure, then motion. The whole cosmos, they claimed, pulses with this sound even now. It has a name, Nada Brahma, not a god, but the vibration that is God, not a song but the song that is everything. To them, sound wasn't a byproduct of the universe. It was the origin. It wasn't an accident. It was the cause. And here's where these traditions, continents apart, shake hands. Thoth taught that all form bows to sound. That vibration is the blueprint of matter. Master the tone and you master the structure. Shape the sound and you reshape reality. Those who grasp this truth walk among the worlds not as mystics or prophets, but as co-creators. This isn't poetic language meant to impress. It's encoded truth, hidden not to deceive, but to protect. Because power in the wrong hands becomes destruction. But here's the pivot, the shift that modern understanding is only beginning to catch, that sacred sound is not somewhere out there. It's not trapped in some lost civilization or locked in ancient temples. It is inside you now, not symbolically, physically, energetically. Your own body is vibrating. Your breath, your organs, your cells, they all carry an echo of that first divine resonance. Your structure is a composition. Your skin is the casing. Each system a unique melody that plays beneath your awareness. Your heart is not just a pump. It is a drum. Your voice is not merely a tool for speech. It is a sacred key. When you speak, you shift the air. But when you chant with conscious intent, you shift your field. That's why the syllable Om, when uttered not casually, but with presence, doesn't just relax, it aligns. It places you in direct communication with the pulse that made the galaxies. It's not mental, it's vibrational. It's not belief, it's physics, emotion, memory, and rhythm colliding into one singular moment of clarity. Those who practice this form of vocal devotion often describe sensations they cannot explain, a calm that cannot be earned through logic, a soft expansion that silences thought and replaces it with awareness. They're not making it up. It's not wishful thinking. It's memory, cosmic memory. And what's astonishing is how perfectly these separate traditions, born thousands of miles and thousands of years apart, speak in harmony. They may use different words, but their truths are identical. At some point you must begin to ask, why was this hidden? Why weren't we told? The answer may lie not in conspiracy but in consequence. Because when you realize the universe was spoken into being, not carved, not assembled, but vibrated into form, you begin to understand what's really at stake. If sound can create matter, it can also unmake suffering. And when that truth is grasped, it no longer belongs to priests or scientists. It belongs to you. This is only the beginning. Now imagine for a moment that every part of your body is waiting, not for a pill, not for an external fix, but for a sound. A vibration tailored to your exact makeup, like a song composed just for you before you even entered this world. Not one chosen by chance, but imprinted through some ancient design, buried deep in your cellular memory. What if the discomfort, the tension, the imbalance you feel isn't a malfunction, but a forgotten melody struggling to find its rhythm again? What if healing isn't about adding anything at all, but removing interference from your natural harmony? The answer, as known by civilizations long vanished, lies in the space between noise and silence, in that charged interval where sound is born and reality listens. The concept isn't foreign to us. We experience it in glimpses, those rare, inexplicable moments of stillness when a tone resonates through your chest and you feel more than you hear. It's not fantasy, it's resonance. Every thought, every emotion, every cell in your body generates a frequency. And when a sound of the right kind meets the right place in you, it acts like a tuning fork striking the strings of a harp. Not just aligning, but awakening. The ancient mystics weren't imagining this. They were practicing it, repeatedly, intentionally, quietly. One particular frequency has fascinated both ancient initiates and modern scientists alike. 528 Hertz. Not simply because it sounds pleasant, but because of what it does. Studies are now confirming what sages intuited. This frequency encourages your very cells to remember how to regenerate, not symbolically, literally. The molecules in your body under the influence of this tone begin to behave differently. Damaged strands of DNA show signs of repair, energy fields reorganize, mental fog lifts, and the breath itself deepens in ways that science can now track. You don't need a machine to experience this. Your own voice can produce it, and not by accident but by design. Thoth described this as the frequency of renewal, what he called the heart's vibration. He claimed that it wasn't just a healing tool, but a sacred architecture that reshaped the very scaffolding of your energy body. When breathed out in chant, it carried more than sound. It transmitted coherence. It reminded the body how to arrange itself, not through force, but through memory. Because health in this view isn't something you chase, it's something you return to. It's your default setting, your origin state, obscured but never erased. But this sound is more than biology. It's spiritual cartography. It maps terrain that instruments can't detect, but your intuition can feel. Each time you vocalize with deliberate awareness, your voice acts like a beacon, one that calls fragmented parts of your being back home. And while the vibration pulses through your tissues, something deeper begins to unfold. You don't just feel better, you start to remember something you didn't know you'd forgotten. This remembrance doesn't come through memory in the usual sense. It arrives through sensation, a warmth behind your chest that you can't explain, a shiver rising up your spine for no visible reason, tears surfacing with no story attached. You are not broken. You are simply receiving yourself again, one vibration at a time. This is what chanting does. Not just when done out loud, but when done with presence, with breath, with permission. It's no wonder that traditions from every continent, separated by time and geography, all somehow knew the same secret. The voice is the portal. Not a metaphorical one, but an actual gateway to transformation. The Tibetans arranged their chants not just for melody, but for integration. They understood that the power of sound wasn't only in its expression, but in its pause. The space between chants was where the shift truly occurred. They didn't chant to fill the silence. They chanted to awaken it. This silence is not emptiness. It is receptivity, the field where sound settles into structure. After each tone, a deep stillness emerges, not because the sound is gone, but because its work is beginning. In that space, your nervous system drops its defenses. Your energetic anatomy, usually busy shielding, softens. You begin to receive, not from outside, but from within. And it is here in this rare atmosphere of listening that the body reclaims its original rhythm. Thoth spoke of silence as the protector of power. Between one word and the next, he said, is the realm where the unseen enters form. It's not what you chant alone, but how you allow that chant to land. Most of us rush past this space. We fear the pause, but that pause is the true anchor. It's the moment when everything reorganizes. You become a living field, holding a new signature, a new resonance capable of altering not just your mood or your mind, but the entire trajectory of your well-being. You see, sound isn't about entertainment, it's architecture. It builds, it shapes, and it reveals. When chanted with precision and heart, it becomes a scalpel more accurate than any blade. It cuts away what doesn't belong. It loosens patterns stuck in the deep musculature of your memory. It unearths stories you didn't realize were still pulsing beneath the surface of your daily life. And sometimes, yes, that release comes with tears, not because something is wrong, but because something is leaving. You're shedding sound residue, vibrational debris from years of misalignment, and once it leaves, space opens, space for clarity, for strength, for presence. No longer burdened by unspoken tension, the body begins to stand differently. The breath flows easier, the mind begins to quiet, and more surprisingly, time itself slows. You begin to live in presence, not in reaction, because presence is what chanting restores, not by suggestion but by frequency. The syllables used by ancient traditions weren't random. They were discovered, not invented. Through stillness and listening, sages heard them rising from the silence like instructions. Lam for grounding, Vam for creativity, Ram for fire and resolve, Yam for unconditional love, Ham for voice and truth, Om for expanded perception, and finally the sound A for union with the all, the infinite. These weren't sounds chosen by taste. They were matched to energetic centers like keys to locks, each one tuned to a part of you that existed before your body even formed. When you chant Lam, your roots reawaken. With Vam, emotion and sensuality stir. Ram lights the inner fire of confidence. Yam breathes open the heart space, long hardened by disappointment. Ham gives breath to the unspoken. Om sends a pulse straight through the center of your head, and A dissolves the illusion of separation between you and the universe. And the more you practice, the more precise this tuning becomes. Your body begins to hum in clarity, your spirit stabilizes, your sense of self deepens, not as an idea but as an experience. Thoth called this the ladder of resonance, a staircase of sound rising within your being. And as each step is activated by the right syllable, your awareness climbs. You do not escape the body. You inhabit it fully, but with more vision. You're not just aligning your spine, you're aligning dimensions. And from this place, the boundary between physical and energetic blurs. When the body vibrates correctly, it's not just healthier, it becomes intuitive. You start hearing what it needs, not with ears, but with knowing. The cravings, the compulsions, the distractions begin to fade. Because you're no longer trying to fill a void, you're now communicating with yourself in the language your soul understands. Tone. But let us return to something even more precise, the 33-second chant. This isn't arbitrary. The number holds structure. In sacred geometry, 33 symbolizes the bridge between matter and spirit. It's long enough to bypass conscious resistance and reach the energetic core. Not a minute, not a second more, just enough to stabilize a new frequency within your personal field. You may feel nothing dramatic in those moments, but the shift begins, the key clicks, the code activates. Something buried beneath the noise of your thinking starts to breathe. And when the chant ends, what follows is crucial. Stillness, that fertile pause, the echo chamber of transformation. Your voice has done its part. Now your silence must receive. In that reception, your system responds, the pulse changes, the aura expands, the breath deepens, not because of faith, but because of function. The vibrational signature you've created begins to settle like snowflakes in your field, forming a new inner landscape, one less ruled by fear, one shaped more by coherence. This isn't magic, it's mastery, a subtle form of self-discipline that feels nothing like effort. It is surrender. You become not the singer, but the song. You don't perform healing, you allow it. You don't control the outcome, you make space for it to unfold. Your voice, as ordinary as it may seem, carries the specific tone of your soul's journey. It's like a fingerprint in sound. No one else can replicate it. And because of that, no one else can unlock your inner world in quite the same way. What you emit through tone matters. It becomes your field. If spoken in fear, it vibrates distortion. If sung in love, it radiates order. Now consider this. Your body is mostly water. Over 70% of you is liquid. And water, as you know, responds to sound with astounding sensitivity. It reorganizes under tone, forming crystalline patterns or chaotic structures depending on what it hears. If a single word can reshape a droplet, imagine what your vocal vibration can do to your entire form. You are not solid, you are symphonic. This is what the ancients understood. And this is what modern science is only now beginning to explore. The interface between sound and biology. The bridge between energy and matter. And what links it all is not machinery, but something far closer. Your voice. Let's return to the very core of it, the source of the resonance that's been calling to you long before you knew its name. This call isn't loud, it's not urgent, it's ancient. A soft beckoning from somewhere behind your ribs, from deep inside the place you feel before you think. The chant, the sound, the tone, it isn't just a practice, it's a homecoming. It's the moment when scattered parts of you begin to draw back together like metal filings to a magnet, as if they've been waiting for one pure vibration to align around. When your voice carries intention, breath, and presence all at once, the sound becomes a sculptor, reshaping the energy architecture of your being. You may think you're just humming, just sounding out a note. But that note does something your conscious mind can't trace. It bypasses logic and memory. It doesn't argue with the past. It simply pulses through the tangled vines of your experiences, clearing a path, whispering, return. And in that space, the fog lifts, not in a blinding flash, but like curtains slowly parting to let in dawn. The air in your chest begins to feel more spacious. not because you're thinking differently, but because the song you just released reconfigured the field around your cells. Thoth called this a vibrational unveiling. He taught that the voice, when married to heart intent, becomes the most precise tool for peeling away the false layers, not by force, not through analysis, through sound. And what's remarkable is how your own body becomes your teacher once you start listening. The shiver on your skin, the warmth that swells behind your sternum, the drop in tension in your shoulders, these are not side effects. They are confirmations, markers that something internal, long stuck, is starting to move. But not all sound heals, not all vibration nurtures. Some frequencies fracture, disorient, dissolve clarity. And this is why sacred sound was never casual. It was deliberate, disciplined, not performed, but offered. Ancient initiates were trained not just to chant, but to carry the tone in exact breath cycles, in specific postures, with undivided focus. Because sound, when misused, scatters energy. It disrupts rhythm, but when used properly, it restores coherence within organs, within memory, within the etheric field. That's why when a specific sound rises from your throat, it feels familiar. Not like a melody you once heard, but like a truth you've always known. It reaches past your thoughts, past your story, past your persona, and touches something primal, something sovereign, something indivisible. This is why chanting can feel emotional. Tears may arise for no clear reason, but the reason is there. It's just older than language. It lives in the fabric of your soul. Sound doesn't just soothe, it reveals. It brings forth what was hidden, softens what was armored, and lights up what was dim. Think of your energy centers not as ideas, but as vibrating portals, gateways that respond like instruments waiting to be tuned. Each one has its own note, its own current, its own need. If your root feels unsafe, the frequency for stability grounds you. If your heart feels constricted, the vibration for love expands it. If your expression feels trapped, the sound for truth unblocks it. This is not mysticism, it's frequency biology. And each time you chant with attention, it's as though you're offering your body a map back to itself. Each syllable you vocalize is like a light clicking on in a forgotten corridor of your being. You don't have to force understanding. You just have to allow it. Let the sound bloom where it needs to. Let it rise, tremble, and dissolve. Let it echo in the silence that follows. Because the silence after a chant is not empty. It's the sacred pause where the body absorbs what the voice delivered. There's something rare about that space, something sacred. It's the moment after vibration and before thought. It's where the new code settles. The ancients understood this. They didn't just chant. They structured their ceremonies around this moment. They protected the silence like a seedbed. Because in that stillness, the real change begins. Muscles soften, nerves uncoil, cells listen. The whole inner landscape, once chaotic, starts to arrange itself like sand forming patterns in response to sound. That's why, when you practice vocal vibration with devotion, you begin to notice change not just within, but around you. The way you carry yourself, the way you breathe, the way others respond to your presence, all shift. You begin to move differently through the world, not louder, not harder, but more harmoniously. And harmony is power, quiet power. The kind that doesn't dominate but resonates. The kind that doesn't demand but draws. You become a living frequency of alignment. And this is where the teachings of ancient initiates blend seamlessly with today's science. Modern research is starting to confirm what mystics have always sensed, that frequency is foundational, that the body isn't simply chemical but acoustic, that each organ, each system, each strand of DNA responds to sound in real time. Studies in cymatics reveal how sound reshapes matter, how grains of sand or droplets of water rearrange into intricate, symmetrical forms when exposed to specific frequencies. This isn't theory, it's observable, replicable, and your body, mostly composed of water, is constantly being shaped by the tones it encounters. If that's true, then imagine what happens when your inner soundtrack is filled with dissonance, chaotic noise, harsh self-talk, anxious loops. That's vibration too, but one that distorts, fragments, exhausts. And here's where your voice becomes your remedy. When you choose to emit tones of calm, of alignment, of presence, you're not just masking the chaos, you're replacing it. You're sculpting your own resonance. You're reclaiming authorship of your energy field. This is why one of the most potent tools in all of healing is free. Your voice doesn't require technology. It doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for sincerity. You don't need to sing in tune. You need to sing in truth. The body recognizes authenticity. It doesn't care about musical accuracy. It cares about coherence. It responds to realness. It follows vibration, not volume. So when you take a breath, when you sound out a vowel, when you hum a note, do it with reverence. Know that something ancient is unfolding, that in those few seconds you are part of a lineage of seekers, sages, healers, and mystics who understood that the mouth doesn't just speak. It awakens, it blesses, it clears. Let your breath carry more than air, let it carry memory. Let it carry the signal that tells every part of you it's safe to return, it's time to reintegrate, it's time to realign, and do it for 33 seconds. No longer, no shorter. That window isn't random. It's a vibrational key, long enough to encode a new pattern, short enough to be repeated daily. After the final note fades, listen, not with your ears, but with your whole field. Listen to what's opening. Listen to what's softening. You'll notice subtle shifts. The way your feet feel more grounded, the way your heart feels less armored, the way your thoughts slow into clarity. These aren't accidents, they are echoes, and the more you repeat the practice, the stronger those echoes become, until they're no longer echoes, but your new baseline. And here's the truth you were never taught. Healing doesn't always shout. Sometimes it hums. Sometimes it begins with a whisper so subtle that you miss it, unless you're still enough to feel. But once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Once you feel it, you can't unknow it. It changes the way you move, the way you breathe, the way you relate. It changes your rhythm, and rhythm is everything. The ancients said, "Find your rhythm, and you will find your strength." And this wasn't just advice, it was instruction. Because rhythm is more than tempo. It is the pace at which your soul unfolds. When you're offbeat with your own truth, life feels like a struggle. But when you restore your natural timing, everything flows. Sound gives you back your rhythm. It reminds your body of its own intelligence. It tells your nervous system it's safe to settle. It informs your breath that it no longer needs to brace. It whispers to your heart, you can open now. This is how the most powerful healing occurs, not through effort, but through resonance. And what's more, when you align your internal field, the world around you begins to shift in response, not by force, not by command, but by attraction. Like tuning forks, your frequency calls in what harmonizes and gently repels what distorts. Relationships begin to refine. Opportunities feel more aligned. Challenges lose their grip. You're no longer living defensively. You're living musically. This is why sacred sound isn't simply a practice. It's a path. A devotional walk back to self. Not back to an old identity, but forward to your original vibration. the one untouched by trauma, unshaped by conditioning, unbroken by time. That tone still lives in you, and your voice knows the way. When you begin to vocalize with presence, when you let tone rise from a quiet place within and extend outward with sincerity, something in your being shifts. It isn't abrupt like a thunderclap, nor does it erupt like fireworks. Instead, it's more like the slow blooming of a flower long buried beneath heavy snow. Each chant, each breath, each moment you give yourself permission to sound from truth. It's as though a layer of frost begins to melt off the hidden parts of your spirit. These aren't abstract changes, they're embodied. You'll feel it in how your chest begins to expand more freely, how your thoughts soften around the edges, how your pace through life no longer feels rushed but intentional. The sound doesn't give you something new. It reintroduces you to what's always been there. Thoth spoke of this sound not as a decoration of life, but as the original script written into the bones of existence. The frequency of the divine wasn't reserved for the gifted or the chosen. It was a language encoded into every living thing. He taught that when the voice vibrates with alignment, it doesn't just speak to the physical, it speaks to the etheric. It communicates with the field, with the pattern, with the hidden scaffolding that holds all of life together. And when that field responds, what was once stagnant begins to move. What was once fractured begins to unite. What was once asleep begins to stir. And in that stirring, memory begins to rise, not from the mind, but from the soul. A memory that doesn't come with images or stories, but with sensation. You feel it in a wave of warmth at your core, in a tingling across your skin, in a sudden breath that feels like your first. This is remembrance, not of your past life or your name or your story, but remembrance of your essence, who you were before the noise, before the conditioning, before you forgot that your voice was sacred. You may find, as many do, that emotions surface with no visible trigger. Tears without reason, laughter from nowhere, shivers up the spine. These aren't side effects, these are releases, stored energies shaking free from the grid of your body. You are not malfunctioning, you are unfreezing. You are not collapsing, you are integrating. The chant becomes the thaw, the vibration becomes the invitation, and your soul, ever watchful, steps forward to meet it. There are sounds, ancient ones, that do more than soothe. They cleanse, they awaken. They restructure your inner world like sunlight filtering through a forest, catching the dust and revealing the particles that were always in the air, just hidden until now. These sounds have been whispered through generations, passed not on paper but in presence, from master to student, from seer to initiate, from ancestor to descendant, and now they find you. Not by accident, but because something in your being has called them forth. You're not hearing this because you stumbled here. You're hearing this because some part of you is ready to remember, ready to sing again, ready to become a tuning fork for your own return. And this return doesn't lead back to some external identity. It leads inward, to the silent chamber of your own being, where the song has never stopped, only gone quiet. And so, as you sit now, perhaps with your eyes closed, perhaps with your hands resting gently in your lap, I ask you to try something. Let your breath deepen. Let your spine lengthen. And without force, allow your lips to part and release a sound, not a word, but a vibration. Let it rise without judgment. Let it carry your emotion. Let it be imperfect. Let it be sacred. Hum, chant, vocalize, not for performance, but for realignment. 33 seconds, that's all. 33 seconds of full presence, and a field of coherence begins to settle within you. This isn't suggestion, it's frequency. It's the recognition that in those few seconds, you are crafting a new atmosphere around and inside you. Your nervous system listens. Your cells respond. Your breath recalibrates. You step out of reaction and into resonance, and the world, subtle as it may seem, notices. Birdsong feels brighter, wind feels warmer, the chaos around you feels less personal. This is your new baseline, calm, clear, attuned. You're not trying to escape reality, you're tuning yourself to it. You're not masking pain, you're dissolving the static around it. You're not running from the past, you're reclaiming your rhythm in the present. And when you do that, your body becomes a sanctuary. Your voice becomes a tool, your presence becomes medicine. Thoth's most protected teachings were never meant to stay hidden. They were meant to arrive in moments like this, when the world had forgotten its music, when the soul longed to be heard. And so he left clues. He encoded wisdom into chants, into numbers, into symbols passed through time, not for preservation alone, but for resurrection. Because there would come a time when humanity would need to remember again, not to survive, but to truly live. That time is now. And now that you've remembered, even if only faintly, even if only in a whisper, you cannot unknow what you felt. The tremble in your chest, the soft clarity behind your forehead, the relaxation in your gut. These aren't tricks, they are truths. The chant is the ignition, the silence is the integration, and together they form a cycle of inner harmony that no external force can replace. But don't stop here. This is not the end of something. It's the beginning of a very sacred return. Continue chanting, even if only softly, even if only once a day. Make your voice your compass. Let it guide you, not to an ideal self, but to your true self, the one vibrating beneath all masks. And when that voice becomes familiar, when that tone feels like home, you'll know you're becoming whole again. This is your invitation to not just hear sound, but to become it. Let your life be a song, not a perfect one, a true one. Let it be filled with pauses that breathe, tones that heal, and silence that integrates. Let your footsteps match the rhythm of your heart. Let your words match the resonance of your soul. Let your presence tune the world around you. And let that tuning ripple outward to all who are ready to remember their own sacred sound. If this touched something in you, if you felt a spark, a softness, a shift, then this moment is already changing you. You've already started your journey back to the tone that's been waiting all along. Don't walk away from this unchanged. Let the vibration continue. Let the frequency settle into your day, into your decisions, into your breath. And before you go, if this resonated with your heart, if you felt even the faintest stirring of that inner flame, help us keep this frequency alive. Take a moment right now to like this video. Share it with someone who's been searching for healing in all the wrong places, someone who might need to be reminded of the sacred power living in their own breath. And if you want to continue on this journey of reconnection, subscribe to this channel. Your support helps carry this vibration further. It helps more people remember what was buried, what was hidden, what was sacred all along. It strengthens the collective resonance we are all building together. Click subscribe, leave a comment, and speak it into the field. My healing begins with sound. This is your voice. This is your time. This is your return. The next chapter is already waiting, and I'll meet you there.